Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I am the Strong Guy and this is Strong Guy Storytime. I'm trying something different now. I'm going to be every week, I'm going to be driving around the county of Essex, visiting the Lost Castles of Essex. I'll be going to them, filming at the site, and then telling you a bit about them, the site, and what happened there over the course of history. So I hope you enjoy. This is something new for me and new for you. Hope you enjoy it. See you in
Hadleigh Castle is a ruined fortification in English county of Essex, overlooking the Thames estuary from the south of the town of Hadleigh. Built after 1215 during the reign of Henry III by Hubert de Burgh, the castle was surrounded by parkland and had an important and economic and defensive role. The castle was significantly expanded and remodelled by Edward III, turning it into a grander property designed to defend against potential French attack, as well as to provide the king with a convenient private residence close to London. 13th century. Hadleigh Castle was first built by Hubert de Burgh, the first Earl of Kent, who was a key supporter of King John. De Burgh was given the honour of Rayleigh by John in 1215 as a reward for his services, but chose not to develop the existing caput of Rayleigh Castle, instead building a new fortification south of the town of Hadleigh. The exact date of construction is uncertain, but it is now believed the work was conducted early in de Burgh's tenure of the site, permission being retrospectively officially confirmed through a licence of crenellate in 1230 under Henry III. The site was chosen on top of the South Essex South Ridge overlooking the Thames estuary, formed from generally soft deposits of London clay. In the 13th century, marshlands would have stretched away to the south of the castle, with the tide occasionally reaching up as far as the base of the hill itself, and the area would have been more wooded than today. By 1235, the Park of Hadleigh had been formed around the castle, including woodland, fish pond, stables, and a park lodge. But the castle was also associated with a wider estate including Rayleigh, Fundersley, and Eastwood Parks. The first castle built on this site was probably of an octagonal design, running along the top of the ridge protected by square and semicircular mural towers, with a barbican guarding the eastern entrance. It probably resembled White Castle in Monmouthshire, remodelled by de Burgh in the same period. The castle was built of Kentish ragstone and cemented by a mortar containing a large proportion of seashells, particularly cockle shells from the cockle beds of neighbouring Canvey Island. A valuable tidal water mill had been built by 1249, essential for making bread for the castle. Recent archaeological work suggests that it was positioned on a wharf reaching out into the estuary just to the southeast of the castle. Terraced gardens were built along the south side of the castle, overlooking the estuary, probably including vineyards. De Burgh finally fell out of favour with Henry III. He was imprisoned and then finally stripped of Hadleigh Castle in 1239. For the rest of the century, Hadleigh Castle was retained as a royal castle as part of an estate containing 142 acres of agricultural land, the Park and Castle Mill. By the 1250s, the castle had fallen into neglect, and despite some investment, after it was given to Queen Eleanor in 1273, it remained in relatively poor condition. Only the mill, vital for the operation of the wider estate, appears to have been well maintained. A new 70-metre wide by 9-metre long hall and an adjacent solar complex were built at the castle around 1290, but collapsed due to subsidence shortly afterwards. In 1299, the castle was given to Queen Margaret, who complained about the quality of the building and insisted that repairs were carried out. Her husband, Edward I, visited the castle twice, using it as a base for hunting in the area. In the 14th century, Edward II took a much closer interest in Hadleigh, leading to a period of renewal and rebuilding during his reign, and that of his son, Edward III. Edward II first stayed there in 1311, and work was done to renovate the castle before he arrived, including building new royal quarters and repairing some of the castle walls that had come to subsidence. Amongst the buildings known to be in the castle during the period were the castle hall, larder kitchen, cellar, a longhouse, prison, an old chamber, and armoury. They were guarded by a garrison of 24 soldiers during the crises. Edward stayed there frequently during his reign up until 1324, on occasion travelling to Hadleigh Castle from London on his royal barge, which docked at a wharf to the south of the castle. Edward III acquired Hadleigh Castle in 1330 when he recovered it from his mother, Isabella of France. who had taken it from Edward when she deposed him in 1326. Edward paid little initial interest to the castle, but in the 1360s decided to make much greater use of the property, ordering large parts of it to be rebuilt at a cost of more than £2,200. Between 1361 and 1363, internal buildings were renovated and new royal lodgings built along the south walls, after which the east side of the castle was rebuilt entirely, with 2 large circular towers installed in a new stretch of curtain wall, completed by 1365. The north side of the castle was rebuilt to include a main entrance with a portcullis and a drawbridge, protected by a barbican and large circular tower, called the High Tower, which was completed in 1370. The work was probably overseen by William of Wykeham. Originally, historians believe that Edward's decision to rebuild much of this castle was in response to the growing tensions with France. In this version of events, Hadleigh would have been formed an important coastal fortification along the Thames estuary, protecting it from French raids. Current historical opinion plays down this motivation, noting that at the time of the work on Hadleigh Castle, relations with France were unusually good. Instead, it is suspected that the increasing elderly Edward intended Hadleigh more as a personal retreat close to London, where he could stay in privacy and considerable comfort. Whilst the entrance to the inland side remained relatively basic, the building work created a grander impression from the estuary. Any visitors to London, English or French, would have passed by Queenborough Castle on the south bank and Hadleigh on the north, the combination communicating a strong sense of royal power. In the centuries that followed, the castle was passed from high-profile owner to high-profile owner, until finally, in 1544, the estate began to be broken up. First the parks were sold, and then the castle itself, bought by Lord Richard Rich from Edward VI for £700 in 1551. Rich dismantled the castle for the value of its stone, primarily between 1551 and 1575, and the castle, now thoroughly ruined, passed through Rich's descendants. Till finally, William Booth purchased Hadleigh Castle and its surrounding site in 1891 for the use of the Salvation Army, which established a farm to train the English poor prior to them being sent overseas to the British colonies. Considerable subsidence and slippage on the ridge occurred between 1898 and 1923, causing the collapse of the southern curtain wall. Until we get to today and modern times, when the Salvation Army gave the castle to the Ministry of Works in 1948, and it is now owned by the English Heritage, classed as a scheduled monument and a Grade 1 listed building. Subsidence and landslips have continued. The northeast tower largely collapsed in the 1950s, and further major slippage occurred in 1969, 1970 and 2002. One of the 3-storey towers at the eastern side stands to nearly full height, with narrow rectangular windows on the upper levels. The second tower has only about 1/3 of its original form. Some sections of the curtain wall have survived, as well as the foundations of the Great Hall, solars and the kitchen. The castle is still surrounded by the 19th century Salvation Army farm, and beyond that by Hadleigh Country Park, owned and managed by Essex County Council, and a site of special scientific interest, with special regard for invertebrates. In 2008, Hadleigh Farm, close to the castle, was announced as the venue for the mountain biking competition in the 2012 Summer Olympics.
Right, that was Hadleigh Castle. As you can see, not much is left, because it was built in the 1200s and then re-fortified in the 1300s. But you can just imagine how imposing it would have looked in its 12th, 13th and 14th century heydays to any ship coming down the Thames from the North Sea, thinking of attacking London and thinking, maybe not. So, yeah. Great having this castle pretty much right on my doorstep. Look forward to going to other ones in the county of Essex and seeing what history my home county's got to offer.